So here I am in the hot seat. I've been given a load of questions to answer. I'm going to go through them and hopefully we'll rattle through and you'll learn a bit more about me. So, first question, what does a typical day look like for you? Probably need to start by saying there is no typical day and every day in this job is different. But if we take yesterday as an example, I started out in London and travelled to the PCS Leeds office where I did a meeting internally with some of the staff around some issues and then met with the DWPGC that was meeting there to discuss the social security campaign that they are running in the group and how that feeds into the national position on social security. I then travelled on to Glasgow. I should say there was a broken down train at Edinburgh in the middle of all of that, so got to Glasgow quite late last night in order to be on the East Kilbride picket line the first thing this morning. So we have members working under the OCS and the G4S contracts, both out on dispute at Abercrombie House in East Kilbride right now. And it's really important that they feel our solidarity, that they know that PCS stands with them and that we all support them in their campaign around some of the issues they face, low pay, really poor terms and conditions, issues that would be very easy to resolve were the government to bring the work back in-house, so a really important issue. Then back here to talk to a training course that was meeting here in Glasgow today and talk to them about the big picture in PCS, and then later on we'll be travelling on to my next meeting tomorrow. So as I say, there's not really a typical day. My days are made up of meetings with the Cabinet Office, meetings with ministers, meetings with reps and members, and the constant stream of emails that come to me 24/7 and trying to keep up to date with all of them and make sure that we're on top of all of the issues. So I hope that's a bit of an insight. The next question then, your first year as PCS General Secretary has seen some challenges. Well, that's true. What's been the toughest moment where you thought, why did I sign up for this? And what has kept you going? I think as someone with a history of being an activist in the DWP for 30 years and always been involved in PCS, there's never been a moment when I thought, why did I sign up for this? But what has kept me going is having that strong team of people that I work with. So I've got brilliant staff that I work with. I've always got lots and lots of comrades that work with me and having the members behind me. So whenever I go to a meeting with the employer, whenever I go to a meeting with the minister, I know that I'm not speaking for Fran Heathcote, I'm speaking for all of the members that PCS represents. So it's that keeps us going and allowing us to make the arguments that matter to members and speaking with that authority. Okay, so PCS has been at the forefront of industrial action over the past year. What is one victory you're particularly proud of and one battle that keeps you awake at night? So in terms of the past year, we have had a lot of industrial action. We have had a national campaign that's been ongoing. That national campaign has been around the cross-cutting issues of pay, pensions and jobs. We have had some successes through that campaign, not least the doubling of the pay remit. And that has led to a position where we took a number of days of industrial action. We've also had the success that comes about after a 10-year campaign following the removal of Check-Off. Check-Off was the system by which people paid their union subscriptions through their salary, and the government's decision, the Tory government's decision to end that system was one that was an existential threat to PCS. Because of the brilliance of our reps and activists, we didn't just survived that threat. We actually came out stronger ultimately, but we have had a 10-year legal battle to hold the government to account for what they did. That recently resulted in a huge victory in the Supreme Court, which means that whilst that government is no longer in office, the government now will have to recompense PCS for everywhere where they removed that check-off system, but also the way in which they did it, and that is a huge victory for us in PCS. In terms of the issues that keep me awake at night, I should start by saying I am a good sleeper. Not much keeps me awake at night, but the issues that I do wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning thinking about are how we're going to maintain as much engagement as possible with our members. Everything has changed, hasn't it, post-pandemic? So at one time, all of us were in the workplace. Now we're not. We're some people come into the office every day, some people don't. So how do we make sure that those members have as much information as possible at their fingertips, that our communications are good and that they give people the information they need, and in turn that allows our members to be as active and participate in our union as much as possible. In order to be a democratic union and one where everybody participates, we need that buy-in from our members. Decisions from the union shouldn't be made by a small group of people sitting around a table in London. They should be made by members being engaged and being involved in the issues, and that determines everything that PCS does. So that keeps me constantly thinking about how we can be better in terms of our communications. The other big issue I will come on to talk about, I think, when I come to one of the later questions. So PCS members know you as a serious trade unionist, but if they could see the off-duty Fran, what would surprise them the most? Probably what would surprise them the most is that I am a very keen cyclist. I wouldn't say I was a fast cyclist or a particularly stylish cyclist, but I do enjoy cycling, and I use that as a way of trying to let off steam. I'm not a very brave cyclist, so when I'm in London, I don't cycle on the roads and do battle with the traffic there. I ride an indoor bike, and I use that as a way of trying to keep active. But when I am at home in Northumberland, I go out on the roads and I try and switch off, at least for a short time, whilst I'm out on my bike. So that's probably something that not everybody knows about me, but if you follow me on social media, you know that I was a very keen cyclist. So what's next then for PCS in 2025? If members are looking for a reason to feel hopeful, what would you say? Clearly, we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. We have a national campaign where, at the moment, people have had hope and optimism that the new government will be better and will lead to improvements for our members. So clearly, the months ahead will determine how true that is and whether they see real change in their pay packets and in their terms and conditions. And if they don't, I think there will be a continuation very much of our national campaign, and that's something that I think we want as many people to feel hopeful about, but also hopeful that it will lead to some real improvements. We want people to feel hopeful, if you're an outsourced worker, that we will make progress on our insourcing agenda, our campaign to try to bring work back in-house. So that picket line I was on this morning was all about a group of workers who are employed by a company. They would have been civil servants had their work not been sold off. I would like to say to the highest bidder, but probably more accurate to say to the lowest bidder. Not very good pay, terrible terms and conditions. Some of these companies don't even recognise the trade union. How do we make sure that we get that work brought back in-house, putting pressure on the government to honour their commitment around insourcing? And if that can't happen immediately, how do we improve the lot for people working on those contracts? So those are big issues, and issues where people should feel hopeful. I would also say to people that we want them to be involved in PCS, and if you're involved and you see the issues that matter to you being progressed by the union, you're going to feel hopeful that there is the ability to change. Obviously, the Employment Rights Bill gives us some cause for hope and optimism, because if implemented, it will be transformational. It will mean that we get a lot of improvements for our members, but our job is to hold the government to account and make sure that they give us reason to feel hopeful. So I think those are issues that we can all work together on, and that we do all work together on. I think it wouldn't matter where you stood politically. Everybody wants to see the union as strong as it can be, winning for members and fighting off the threats that are posed around the world by the far right and by world leaders that have a very different viewpoint to the average PCS member. So there are huge issues at stake, but the hopefulness and the optimism comes from our ability to work together to build a strong union. And finally, if I could sum up my first year as General Secretary in 3 words, what would they be? Challenging, inspiring and ultimately incredibly rewarding. And I want to say thank you to everybody who supported me in my first year, and to say that it is rewarding, and it's rewarding because of the fantastic union that we work together to build. Thank you so much for listening.